Yeah, do it.
Welcome to Don't Judge, Just Love. I'm pretending to be Chase today. You always do the intro, and I actually feel really awkward and uncomfortable doing it right now. I don't even know what I'm saying.
You did a great job.
Take it away, Chase.
No, this is the Don't Judge, Just Love podcast, where we talk about all the things.
Is that what this is?
With no judgment.
Only love.
That's right.
We're idiots. Okay.
I liked Shannon's intro, didn't you guys? That was fun.
All right. Okay, this is part 3 of a little 3-segment series, if you will, that we are doing on travel. And you may or may not find all of these episodes really boring. We don't know. We're testing the waters here, so give us your feedback. But this is part 3. Chase and I recently, if you missed the previous 2 episodes, Chase and I recently took a trip to Europe. We've been there several times, but this was the first time we'd been there in a while. It'd been like 4 years, I think, since we'd been back. And we love to travel. We love Europe. That's always where we go when we take international trips. But obviously, now that our familial situation, such a weird way to say that. Familial is such a weird word.
Our family is bigger.
That's it. There you go. We get asked, understandably, so what do you do with the kids when you go on these long trips? Fair question. Because when you go on an international trip, it does kind of feel like, all right, if I'm going to go all the way over there to really make it worth it, you got to stay for at least a week. And more like 10 to 14 days, I think, is how most people feel. That's kind of how we feel. But real talk, like, it's hard to be away from your kids for that long.
For sure.
You know, whether they're medically complex or typically developing, either way, I just think it's a long time.
It's hard to be away from your kids.
It's a long time for sure. And so we get that question. We thought we would talk just a little bit about how we make that work with our family. And on this, we can just focus on this trip specifically because it's the most recent. But why don't you talk now, Chase? Why don't
Let me pass it to you.
Why don't you do the substantive part of
No, you're doing great.
Of the podcast.
So for this specific trip, I think we wanted to accomplish 2 things with Jack and who was watching Jack. So Jack wanted to visit his Nana, which is my mom. And the other thing is who
lives in Utah, by the way. We live in Boise, Idaho. She lives in Utah. And
they'd been talking, about hanging out for a week or 2, and he wants to be like a Nana week where he gets to kind of hang out with Nana and do anything and everything he wants with Nana.
Well, and he was pretty adamant about
with no parents.
Yes, that part. It was like he wanted this to be a special trip that felt different than because we visit Chase's mom in Utah
multiple times a year.
Fairly often, yeah, because it's a pretty quick trip for us. He wanted this to feel different than that. And so it was very much like, I want to go there without my parents. I want to stay for longer than we usually stay. I want 2 weeks with just my Nana. And for more context, when we lived in California, we lived about 5 minutes away from Chase's parents. And so super, super close to them. And Jack, in particular, super, super close to them. He was the first grandchild in the family, and they just got really close. So he misses her. He misses Chase's mom a lot. Anyway, all of that to say, that's what he wanted. And we felt like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity to try that out.
Yeah.
While we're on this trip. So that's what we did with Jack.
We flew with him down to Utah and dropped him off before we flew to Switzerland.
Yeah. And that was another fortunate, kind of way that things played out, is that our layover we flew from Boise, and our layover happened to be in Salt Lake, which allowed us, and it was long enough that it allowed us to
drop off Jack.
Fly with Jack from Boise to Salt Lake, pass him off to Chase's mom, and then continue on to our final destination. And then,
by the way, my mom Nana sent tons of pictures of them
Yeah, she was the
doing
best.
things.
Oh
I
my
think he had
gosh.
like the best time.
He lived like an entire, like
Like an
three
entire
summers,
summer.
like
Yeah.
3 summers in
In a
that
week and
2
a half.
weeks.
Yeah.
It was like every day they were like summering hard. Like,
Super hard.
oh, God bless your mom.
Went fishing,
She's-
went to the
They
zoo.
went fishing, they went hiking, they went to the zoo, they went to the
Bowling.
museum, they went bowling, they went to this like rec center thing. They had barbecues.
Probably like
they,
a trampoline park.
He got together with all of his cousins. They went swimming. Did we say that? I mean, they went on like a train thing.
They
like,
went on hikes.
Yeah. They just did everything. So
He went to choir with my mom as well.
yeah,
He led the music at choir, which everyone wants to do during the summer.
totally. So anyway, so that was great. And honestly, it did appease our, parent guilt a little bit. It helped to feel like, okay, he's having a blast. He's not even, I really don't think he missed us until the very end. Chase's mom did say that toward the end, she could tell like, okay, he was missing mom and dad. 2 weeks was maybe like a little long, but for the most part, he was good.
It was like an 80s or 90s movie when he saw Shannon and I running in the airport.
Ran to us in the airport, jumped into my arms.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
cutie.
very cute.
Obsessed with him.
So that's Jack.
So
What
that was
about
Jack.
Ava and Charlie?
So Ava and Charlie, we have a unicorn nanny that we've talked about, our nanny Sid. We left the girls here at our home in Boise with Sid, our nanny. and it was great because that was another scenario where we have definitely left all 3 of the kids with just Sid before when we've gone on trips. But given how long this trip was, it felt a lot better to only leave her with 2 instead of all 3. So that worked out really well, actually. And yeah, she stayed here with the girls. She knows, and I feel like that was also really nice because the girls were in their, typical environment that they are comfortable with, where all of the things that they need are
Really easily available.
Yeah, they didn't, they were able to go to all of their appointments and their, standard things, their therapy and all of that. And it just worked out really great.
Yeah.
And we actually felt really fortunate because, knock on wood, but I feel like a lot of times when Chase and I go out of town, I don't know what this is, but like
Something goes wrong.
something will happen where the girls either have to go to urgent care or
Emergency room.
yeah, and like, again, knock on wood, it's always like semi lightweight things, but it's still something, where Sid's stressed, we're on the phone back and forth trying to figure it out. And we end up just feeling like, oh my gosh, like we need to be there. Like this is terrible that we're not there. And so we almost went on this trip like fully prepared for that to be the case. And then it didn't. And it's one of the few trips where that didn't happen, which is ironic because it was also one of our longest trips ever that we've been on. So yeah, so that worked really well.
Yeah. And what's so growing up, my parents, I felt like they demonstrated a great example of going on trips once a year.
Your parents would.
Yeah, they would just go on a trip with themselves, just the two
Just
of
the
them,
two of
or maybe with another couple or something like that, or my aunt and uncle, and they would go somewhere for a week or 2 weeks. I think was the longest they were ever gone, but we would stay with family, or most of the time, I think almost all the time we'd stay with family or friends or some sort of babysitter or something, but.
Almost all the time. Like, are you saying that sometimes you didn't stay with anyone?
No. I'm trying to think through all the people that we stayed with when we were really small. I think we did have like most of the time it was family that was watching us, but there was like 1 or 2 times where we had like a babysitter that we knew
One
really
or two
well.
times where we watched ourselves. It was fine.
We were like 5 and 6.
Our parents were really
No,
they really prepared
They were
us
super
well.
responsible, but it was such a great example to me of making time, for them and for their relationship, and I always remember that and admired that, and so I've tried to emulate that in our relationship.
You missed a big 4-year chunk there, buddy.
During COVID.
COVID, yeah. Oh, it was COVID. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I agree. And I was going to say, when I mentioned like our parent guilt was appeased a little bit, my thought right after I said that was like, but wait, I want to like teach myself to get out of that mindset of like needing to feel guilt. Like to your point, I don't want to feel guilty that we take time, and because it is really important. It's really important to have that time with just your spouse or your partner and to reconnect. And obviously, again, there are a lot of variables that make that really difficult or sometimes make that impossible. But I feel like prioritizing it and just seeing the value in it and making it happen, it's important for sure. For sure.
And whether the trip is international or close by, I think it's just important. It doesn't even the length of the trip. I think it's important to prioritize that in a relationship.
For sure. We used to be better about that. We used to always go on. We used to go
on
a date every single week, and we were good about it.
We're getting back on track.
Then COVID really messed that up, and we have just barely started to like, okay, we got to get back to our dates once a month. I also do want to say, and again, I don't want to sound obtuse in anything that we're sharing in these episodes, because what I was going to say is, excuse me, for parents of medically complex kids, maybe especially, I think there can be a feeling of like that guilt of leaving the kids to go do something as a couple. Maybe there's a propensity for that to be even more intense, just because there are additional needs and additional concerns and, chances that things could happen anyway. And I know a lot of medical parents who they don't feel like they are able to do that and able to get away. And I don't know. I'm not exactly sure the point that I'm trying to make, because again, it's like, I get it that it's not always possible, and that there are, especially when you have a medically complex child, there's more to coordinate and to, it's not just like the person watching them has to be able to handle their situation and all of the things that they need. So there's definitely an added layer of complexity there, but maybe what I'm speaking to is the guilt part. I think those parents in that camp, in the camp that we're in, as parents of medically complex kiddos, perhaps even more so, need to like push that feeling of guilt away, and recognize like, no, that like we need that, like you need that opportunity to go and recharge and just be something different or be something additional than just a medical parent. Does that make sense? Really struggled to get that out.
But it was worth it. It was worth the wait.
Really struggled. And I hope that is received in the way that I mean it. I don't mean to be obtuse, but I just think it's important. And I think it's easy to feel that guilt, but that doesn't mean you should feel it. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
Because now I'm rambling. Okay. What else? Anything else? Anything else, Chase?
No, it's good.
As always, y'all, we promise this will be short and sweet, so we're going to wrap it up. But as always, if you have any additional comments, questions, anything related to this episode, you can find us on our social platforms. I'm Shannon Willardson on Instagram. We're the Willards Family on YouTube, Shannon Willardson on TikTok. The Family Made YouTube channel is where our podcasts air, the video versions, or our YouTube channel. And
Spotify.
Yeah, and of course you can listen
Apple.
Anywhere you listen to your podcast. I cannot talk. Talking is hard. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Don't Judge Us, Just Love podcast.
You're struggling too.
I'm struggling too.
It's okay.
We'll struggle together.
It's okay.
We will talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Have a good one.